Imagine this: two drivers, identical machinery, identical track. One brakes later, deeper, and hits the apex faster. The other trails behind, frustrated, not because they're slower, but because the brake pedal beneath their foot feels like it's lying to them. The difference? Temperature, friction, balance. Physics, the engineers tune lap by lap. Because here's the truth: confidence at the brake point is where races are won and lost. And today we're unlocking how. In Formula One, the brake pedal is where milliseconds transform into points, and points into championships. A driver who trusts their brakes will attack 3, 4, sometimes 5/10ths harder than one who doesn't. And that confidence isn't born from courage alone. It's engineered. Teams spend hundreds of hours adjusting brake temperatures, friction coefficients, and pressure distribution to create a pedal that feels like an extension of their driver's intuition. 1/10 of brake temperature drop can change everything. Turn-in speed, apex entry, exit traction. Get it wrong, and even Lewis Hamilton feels tentative. The stakes? A championship decided by drivers who've learned to read their brakes like a book, against those still decoding the language. This is where engineers and psychologists overlap, where physics becomes psychology, and where the real racing happens, before the corner even begins. So let's walk through what's actually happening inside your brake system when a Formula One driver enters a corner at 300 kilometers per hour. The brake disc, a carbon composite rotor the size of a dinner plate, begins to glow cherry red as friction pads squeeze it with a force equivalent to 3 tons of pressure. At that exact moment, the driver's brain is reading feedback through their foot. Is the brake soft and progressive, or sharp and responsive? Temperature isn't just a number on a dashboard, it's the heartbeat of trust. A brake disc operating at the optimal 800 degrees Celsius has a friction coefficient, the grip between pad and rotor, that's perfectly balanced. Too cold and the brakes feel wooden, like pushing through wet clay. Too hot and they fade. The pad glazes over like a non-stick frying pan, and stopping power evaporates when you need it most. Here's where it gets psychological. Drivers can feel a temperature variance of 50 degrees Celsius, 50. That means if overnight ambient temperature drops, or if an engineer miscalculates brake balance by 1%, the driver's entire mental model of where the corner actually is shifts. Their brain has trained thousands of laps to expect brake response at point A, and if that response now happens at point B, they're immediately tentative. During a lap, airflow cooling the brake is constantly fighting the friction heat being created. Engineers design brake ducts that funnel cool air directly onto the disc, managing a race condition between acceleration and deceleration. Every 1/10 of a degree either builds or erodes the driver's confidence in that braking zone. That confidence translates directly into how hard they'll trail brake into the apex, how late they'll turn in, and ultimately how many tenths they'll gain on the driver ahead. The most vivid example is Ayrton Senna at the 1988 Japanese Grand Prix. Suzuka, where one corner decides everything. Senna's McLaren had a brake balance system he'd spent all season tuning to his exact feel, calibrated to his aggression. When Alain Prost pulled alongside into the first corner, Senna didn't back out. He trusted his brakes absolutely, carrying speed nobody else could manage into a corner that demands precision. That trust, built on thousands of braking cycles at exactly the same temperature, the same modulation, was worth a championship. Now jump forward to 2016, Lewis Hamilton versus Nico Rosberg at the same track. But a completely different scenario. Rosberg struggled all season with brake confidence on fast corners. Telemetry showed he was consistently hitting the brakes earlier than Hamilton, losing tenths on entry. It wasn't lack of speed, it was lack of faith in how the brake felt under his foot. By mid-season, Mercedes engineers realized that Rosberg's optimal brake temperature was 3 degrees lower than Lewis's, and the moment they adjusted his brake duct airflow to hit that window, his lap times jumped overnight. Same car, same track, same corner, but now Rosberg could brake as late and as hard as Hamilton, Because the physics beneath his foot finally matched what his brain expected. These weren't heroic drives or lucky accidents. They were engineers and drivers who understood that confidence isn't subjective, it's engineered. Now here's a thought experiment. What if, on the very next race weekend, Mercedes had reversed their approach, cooling Rosberg's brakes down another 2 degrees while warming Hamilton's up? On paper, nothing changes. The car's limits stay identical, the track's grip is the same, but the moment both drivers hit turn 3, Rosberg would suddenly feel less confident, while Hamilton would feel like he'd discovered free speed. Not because the physics changed, but because the psychology fell out of sync with it. Confidence collapses faster than grip. The car feels alive one lap, treacherous the next. That's the hidden margin in motorsport. Not the 10th you find, but the 10th you lose by breaking the contract between engineer and driver. So remember, brake temperature, modulation, and balance aren't just mechanical adjustments. They're the silent negotiation between machine and mind. Get these 3 right, and a driver stops thinking about stopping and starts thinking about attacking. Get them wrong, and the fastest car on the grid feels like it's fighting you. Tell us in the comments, should we dive deeper into tire temperature management next? Or would you rather explore how suspension geometry shapes a driver's confidence on corner entry? And if this changed how you see racing, hit subscribe, because every lap tells a story that physics alone can't explain.